Hey guys, so we're finally on our last lecture of World War One, which is the end of the war. So what we're going to look at in this lecture is sort of how the war wrapped up and what the treaty looked like, and sort of how this war is going to set up World War Two. So let's get started. So first of all, when the war ended, it a lot of it had to do with the Americans coming in. Germany was worn out. The German people were kind of done. They forced the German Kaiser into exile, and the new German government said, we are going to stop fighting. So the armistice began on the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour on November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m. Yes, they planned it. So that was when the fighting officially stopped and the Germans unconditionally surrendered. This is going to have a huge impact. So in total, about 22 million deaths were recorded from World War I. About 11 million of them were civilian. French citizens who were close to the trenches, Russian citizens, people who were sunk in German U-boat attacks, most non-military. So this war had a really big impact. In terms of economic cost, it cost about $300 billion. That's a huge amount of money. So Europe is officially kind of in ruins, but also there was sort of this lost generation. So this war was really hard. These were the young men who kind of came of age during World War I. And most of them suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. At the time, we didn't really understand PTSD. They called it shell shock. There was no psychological care, no medication, no therapy. So a lot of these men went home broken men. Even the ones who survived never really got over it. A lot of them did become writers. We get some of our best poetry from World War I soldiers. Best authors like Ernest Hemingway came out of this war. But these men were, again, a generation of men who never really recovered. So the question really became, was it worth it, right? Was this war, which was fought over the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, did it really count, right? Did it really protect American liberties and freedoms? So just to give you some kind of numbers here, Germany mobilized over 11 million men. Of those, there were about 2 million who were killed. France and Austria, you can see the numbers here. The United States obviously lost fewer men because we came in much later. Russia lost some of the most. You'll notice really only second to Germany. But this war had a major cost, right? So when it came to kind of deciding whether or not, or how we were going to take the blame for this war, right? We have a group called the Big Four who meet in Paris to sort of come up with the treaty for this, right? So first we have Woodrow Wilson, this guy right here. He's the American. He wants to solve some of the issues that kind of started this conflict. He wants to kind of put to bed militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism, those main causes. How can we fix those? The other guys, not so much. France is, his prime minister is a guy named Clemenceau. That's this guy right here. Clemenceau wants revenge. France took the hardest hit during the war because it's where most of the war was fought. He wants Germany to pay, and he wants some land out of it. Like, we're going to get some compensation out of this. David Lloyd George, which is this guy right here, he wants to, quote, make Germany pay. Again, he blames Germany. Britain blames Germany for the war, and they're really going to make sure that they get what they want out of this. Last but not least, we have Italy's prime minister, a guy named Orlando, and what he wants is Austria-Hungary's land. Italy had been controlled by the Austrian Empire for a while, and they kind of want some payback on that. So that's kind of what's going on. You'll notice there are a few people missing. One, Russia. Russia had been the allies of Britain and France, but because of the revolution, they dropped out of the war, and they didn't want to deal with the communist government, so they weren't invited. The other big one that's not invited, Germany. Germany gets no say in this peace treaty. It's going to be decided for them by their enemies, by people who want revenge. if you can guess, the treaty's not going to look so great, right? So Wilson comes up with this idea called the 14 points. And he originally gives this in a speech to Congress before he goes to France. And the 14 points are exactly what it is, the list of 14 points. And the plans are to kind of solve some of the problems. He gets to Europe. He says, we're going to make peace with honor. It's going to be great. And the other three guys are like, nah, dude, we don't want to deal with that. This is gross. So they reject it. The one Wilson really fights for is called the League of Nations. So the League of Nations is this international peacekeeping organization that basically all of the representatives of all the countries in all the world will come together to kind of solve these problems. This was Wilson's baby. He was not going to get rid of it. So if any of the points got accepted, he was going to make sure it was the League of Nations, and that's the one that went through. So, peace at last? We'll see. The Treaty of Versailles did several different things. First of all, it created 9 new countries, including Poland, the Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, a few others, mostly in the Balkan region. It breaks up both the Ottoman and Austrian empires. Some of them went to colonies, some of them went to these new nations. A lot of the Middle Eastern nations that were part of the Ottoman Empire are the ones that became colonies, or what they called... I can't think of the word, but basically they were colonies. Germany is demilitarized. They are not allowed to have a military. They also have to sign a clause that is called the War Guilt Clause, which means that they take all the blame. Now think about it. Were they the ones that really caused this war? They threw the first punch, but was it really all their fault? No, there were a lot of other problems. They also are going to be forced to pay reparations. Remember that $338 billion that this war cost? Britain and France want that money back, and they want it from Germany. Spoiler alert, Germany can't pay it. In fact, Germany finally finished paying their reparations from World War I in the 1980s. Yikes, right? Really big deal. Last but not least, the last part of the treaty is Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations, his peacekeeping organization. Now, this treaty is considered unfair, especially to the Germans, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. In America, it is also completely unpopular. So Henry Cabot Lodge was a senator. He's a Republican senator, Woodrow Wilson's a Democrat, and they had a problem with the League of Nations. A lot of Republicans and a lot of people in America at this time said, wait a minute, isn't this just going to pull us into other conflicts? Isn't the League of Nations really just a way to get America involved in Europe's wars again? No, thank you. We don't want this. So the American Senate, whose job it is to ratify treaties, never signed the treaty, never joined the League of Nations, which was created by an American president. Woodrow Wilson actually has a stroke in the middle of this debate and is rendered incapable. He is incapacitated. And because he's not able to fight for the treaty, we don't sign it. So technically, we never signed this treaty. Only the Europeans did. And we never joined the League of Nations. As a result, the League of Nations, it's not going to really work, right? Now, eventually, we will create another worldwide peacekeeping organization that does work a little bit better, and that's the United Nations. So that is the one that's kind of the granddaughter of the League of Nations. The map of Europe completely changed. If you look at like map of Europe from 1914 to 1919, you can see there's a huge shift in who controls what. The number of countries, look at the Austro-Hungarian Empire broken up into all these other countries. Yeah, things are going to be really different. Like I said, the United States was not crazy about the League of Nations, not crazy about the idea. It's the reason they didn't sign the treaty. A lot of people thought that was kind of dumb. So if you look at this, consider this like Henry Cabot Lodge here. See that horrible vulture, take it away. It's a peace dove, right? Like, calm down, dude. But overall, the whole thing is really kind of a big failure. And in a lot of ways, it's the cause of World War II. So The 20s and 30s are going to be kind of a crazy time as we get into those, but I hope you learned a little bit of something about World War I. We'll go into more detail on certain of these things in class, but otherwise, y'all have a great one.